So first of all, I would like to welcome to this session, which is called The Power of the European Code of Good Conduct, a quality label for microfinance institutions and social economy finance providers. As this session is part of, it comes with the support of SIFTA, I would like to briefly introduce what is SIFTA. So I will share my screen. 1 second. So SIFTA is the Social Inclusion Finance Technical Assistance Initiative, which European Investment Bank is managing as implementing partner of InvestEU. Basically, it provides two kinds of services, technical assistance services and evaluation services within European member states, EU27. For this, we count with the support of two service providers. One of them is represented in this panel with is MFR, and the other one is a consortium led by the Frankfurt School of Finance, European Microfinance Network, and Microfinance Center. We wanted to know a bit better our audience, and we have prepared a poll like to share with you about what is your familiarity with the Code of Good Conduct. So maybe Pavel, you can display the poll, please. Okay, perfect. Just to introduce a bit, the Code of Good Conduct for Microcredit Provision serves as a self-regulation tool and a quality level for microfinance institutions. It contains high ethical and responsible lending practices in the European microfinance sector. And we are very lucky today because in this session, we are going to count with all the actors involved in the code. From the European Commission, we count with Agnès Papadia, Deputy Head of Unit of the Social and Inclusive Entrepreneurship at DG Employment. From MFR, we count with Adèle Boyeux, Regional Manager for Europe at Microfinance Rating, in charge mostly of supervising SIFTA program, which MFR is the main evaluator. And from the practitioner, we count with Lina Sarmalis, CEO of Novity Finance. To start, we have prepared this session a bit informally. We will launch some questions to the speakers, and we will start with Agnès. Agnès, please, can you introduce briefly yourself? Okay, I already introduced a bit, but you can introduce yourself, your day-to-day activities, and also tell us a bit why the code was created by European Commission and how it helped so far the microfinance sector in Europe.
Thank you, Eduardo. So yes, I'm Agnès Papadia. I work at the European Commission, in particular in the Directorate General for Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion. And we are the ones that were responsible for launching the code and now managing it, of course, together with all the partners. And we are also the policy DG steering the work on the social and skills window of the InvestEU program. So we work also on the financing side for microfinance. So the code. First of all, I mean, the point that I would like to stress first is that the code is not a standalone instrument, but is part of all the efforts we are doing at EU level to promote the microfinance sector in the EU. So it's only one of the different instruments we have in place, including the financing. So we have been working for many years already in this field to support microfinance. And why we decided that a tool like the code, which is a set of standards, was useful. I mean, a few years ago, looking at the microfinance sector in the EU, what really was striking was the diversity of the sector. So there were different regulatory frameworks in which microcredit providers had to operate. And we really saw the need for a unifying set of standards that was common for the sector. So this was not only for the sector itself, but also for the customers, the regulators, and for everybody. So this is why when we came up with the idea of the code, so to have a sort of set of good practices guidelines that could help the sector to further grow and also to address some of their main challenges, like how to access long-term finance, raising the quality of the services, and also be sustainable. So this was the reason why in 2011 we decided to launch the code. And I mean, let me just clarify, the idea is that the code should not, introduce or replace existing regulation for microcredit providers. It's really thought as a common standard for the whole EU in terms of operation and reporting, especially. So as I said, we launched in 2011. This was done together with practitioners, stakeholders from the European microfinance sectors itself. So it's not something that we created, in our offices, but really was done in the dialogue with the sector. And from the start, we wanted it to be an instrument that really reflects also market realities. So this is why over the years, since 2011, we have updated it, always in consultation with all the relevant actors, to make sure that this was still an instrument that was useful for the microfinance providers. So the last update was done in 2021. How it has helped the sector, I mean, this is based on the feedback we received from the institutions that have been awarded the code. They saw it in particular as an opportunity to examine their business models and the way they operate. So it is a self-assessment instrument also. So it really helps the organizations themselves to look at the way they operate and see where improvements are needed. It can be in the area of how to improve customer relations, how to improve their business planning, or their internal processes. So the feedback received during the code evaluation, it's really, the feedback we got is that it's really helpful for the organizations to improve the way they work. And also another feedback that we got is that the code really helped many organizations to improve the way how they are perceived in terms of their reputation, credibility, visibility, and also the relationship with existing partners. And also it helped them to differentiate themselves in the market. So being one of the core awardees, of course, it is a quality label for microfinance institutions. So this is what we saw, how the code has helped until now. Thank you.
Indeed. I believe that the code is very, very useful for the microfinance institution, for themselves, and also for the imagine and the projection that they have outside. To continue, we will continue a bit with introduction of the code. And I have a question for Adele. Okay, first, Adele, maybe you can, as Agnes did, you can introduce yourself, tell us about how is your day-to-day in relation with the code, and also provide a bit of a description of the main topics that are evaluated in the Code of Good Conduct.
Okay, so hello everyone. So my name is Adele Voyeux. I'm the Regional Manager Europe and MFR. So MFR is Microfinance rating. We're a rating agency based in Milan with the head office in Milan, but we work worldwide for the microfinance sector and as well inclusive finance. We are currently the main evaluators for the SIFTA program and especially the code evaluation. To respond to your question, Eduardo, regarding the main, let's say, areas, the main topics evaluated, I have prepared one slide so that you can also all see these topics. I think it will be easier. Let me share my screen. Let me know if you can see the slide.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so in terms of the code, there are 5 main chapters, so 5 main different topics which are analyzed during the code. The first chapter is customer and investor relations, which will check anything related to the loan contract, to the transparency with the clients, to the communication with the clients, GDPR, many different topics within this first chapter. Then we have another chapter which is more related to governance. So it will really look at the board of directors, how many they are, what are the statutes, what are the different rules put in place, as well as the top management. So what is the role of the top management? Is there any written policies? Then there is a third chapter about risk management. So in this chapter, we will check the risk department, but also internal audit. So the idea here is it doesn't need to be a big risk department. It's just to have a risk management structure, a risk framework. How do you evaluate? How do you, what are the different mitigation measures put in place in terms of risk? Then we have a fourth chapter, which is data disclosure. This one is more about transparency. So there is a few sets of indicators that the institution will have to calculate. We, as the evaluator, will approve them. And once they are approved, they will have to be downloaded on their website. This is for transparency reasons. And then finally, the fifth chapter is management information system. So we'll be checking the CRM, but also the MIS system in place and see if it is compliant with the code. So these are the main topics, let's say, that the institution will have to comply with. Now, the institution doesn't have to comply with 100% of the code. That's not the idea. They have to be compliant with 80% of the total number of clauses that are within the code. There is at the moment 154 clauses. Now, all of the clauses are not specifically applicable to an institution. For instance, if there's no credit bureaus in the country, then of course there is a clause related to the credit bureau, then this one won't be applicable. So it's a fair, let's say, evaluation. But then there is a specific type of clause, which are called the priority clauses. They're actually highlighted in red in the code. These clauses are the most important, and the institution has to comply with 100% of them. So this is just because they are the main, let's say, topics to be evaluated on. Now, in terms of certification, just a quick sentence. How is the institution certified? So it's not us, the evaluator, that will give the certification. We perform the evaluation, we prepare a report, which will then be shared and presented at the steering group. The steering group takes place quarterly, so once every 4 months, and it will be the European Commission and the other members that will grant the certification. And then finally, the validity of the code is currently 4 years. It used to be 3 years, but now it's 4 years with a mid-term evaluation every 2 years to have a bit of an idea of where the institution stands in terms of the code. So that's it, just to give a brief idea of what are the main topics of evaluation.
Perfect, thank you, Adele. I think this information is very useful for the 25% of the audience that is planning to submit an application to the code. Like this, they have a bit of overview of all the clauses, all the structure, different parts of the code. And I would like to continue with Linas. I see, Linas, that you choose very good background. I see in the back in your office the Code Award. So thank you for putting it in the in this presentation. And I would like to ask you, how do you see the code for you, for your institution? Do you see it more like administrative burden just to profit or to apply for a financial instrument? Or do you see it like a quality stamp for your customers and for your internal procedures?
Yeah, if to answer, hello, yes, if to answer shortly, that's definitely a quality stamp. I'm on one hand, I'm very glad that there is this quality requirement for non-bank financial institutions in order to join some governmental programs, that they would be compliant with the code of good conduct. Because if you look in the market, it's clearly that financial institutions usually very much struggle to get the to be trusted by customers, to gain that trust. And well, banks and credit unions, they are in more preferable situation because due to the status, due to the fact that they are regulated by central banks, they have that higher trustability level. And still, despite that fact, it depends country on country, but more like, it still is a challenge for them to really gain that trust that customers will bring it. Now, for non-bank financial institutions, that's a double challenge because they do not have that strict regulation, which is on banks. At the same time, there are a lot of those institutions in the market, and for regular customers, it's very difficult to navigate that market. So basically, if to group all the players in the market, then we will see that there are regulated ones, which are banks, credit unions. Then we have, on the other side, we have quick credit companies, which are those which appeared roughly 15 years ago, which, are extremely expensive, not so transparent, and, do not have a trust in the market. But then what also happened is during all those, let's say, 15 or 10 years, we started to have in the market the third pillar of players, of lenders in the market, which I would call like non-bank financial institutions, like alternative lenders, who are actually using that technology, which is available, and at the same time using much more friendlier conditions, presenting much more friendlier conditions for the customers, serving, like acting as a bridge lenders for customers who not yet at the level of a bank. They cannot be financed by the bank due to their size, due to their needs, because their needs maybe are quite low, due to their age, because it might be a young company, etc. There are a lot of reasons why they cannot be served by a bank. Banks are always more stricter. And so basically those lenders are serving as a bridge. Now, how for those lenders to differentiate themselves from quick credit companies? Because they are a few times cheaper than those quick credit companies. They are very much partnering with the state. They are actually trying to join two good things here: technology with the partnership approach and the friendliness which customers are expecting from financial institutions, either it is a bank or not a bank. So how to differentiate themselves in that market. And code of good conduct is actually servicing as a tool for those lenders to differentiate themselves. At the same time, it is also a tool which helps to establish this good discussion with governmental institutions in each country by saying, you know what, we might be a good social partners. We might deliver, especially when we talk about SME lending, which is always sensible segment in each market. So lenders basically are coming to a state institution and might say, we might be a good social partners for you while delivering those social goals, but the credits will be available, affordable for businesses. And you know what? We are acting in a good way, and code of good conduct is a good proof of that. So in that case, for governmental institutions, it's also much easier to cooperate with those lenders because, well, in that case, they know, okay, if you are working according to code of good conduct, you are a good guy. If you are not working according to that, maybe you are a quick credit company, which is actually looking in ways how just to squeeze, profit from the customers. So without thinking about the social implications and etc. So that's definitely a quality stamp, both for the customers, both for the governmental institutions, which are in each country looking in the ways how to use that ecosystem of lenders. So, absolutely, I'm very much glad that we joined that instrument, and I think it has a bright future.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you a lot for your feedback. And just to continue, I would like to make another question to Agnes. Maybe she can provide an overview of what kind of organization has mostly benefited from the code, and also kind of overview of the countries.
Yes, sure. Thanks, Eduardo. So maybe first, what is the primary target for the code? So the primary target are non-bank microcredit providers, which provide loans up to 50,000 euros to micro entrepreneurs, either directly or in partnership with another financial institutions like a bank, for example. So these are the primary targets. But at the same time, of course, we need to consider the diversity of the sector, no, in the EU, in terms of size, the institutional setup, and also the size of the market. So, of course, this diversity is also reflected then in the organizations that are awarded with the code. So if we look at the organizations awarded, at the moment we have a total of 67 code awarded institutions that are spread across 21 countries. These are European countries, and 17 of these are in the European Union. And in terms of the countries that have the most institutions, for sure the first one is Romania with the highest number, but we also have countries like Italy, Hungary, Spain, Poland, Greece, France, Belgium, and Lithuania. So these are the countries where we see more institutions awarded with the code. And if we look at the type of organizations, we see that the diversity is reflected also in the diversity of the sector is reflected also in the type of organizations, because we have financial institutions, private companies, microfinance institutions, NGOs, governmental organizations. And then something that is also slightly different but important, that also there are also code endorsement. So this is different type of procedure, but all the banks can also endorse the code. So they are also part, and we have dozens of these also since the start of the code. So also many banks that have endorsed the code. Yeah, I think we have more than 80 in total. So this is a bit the picture. So many countries that are represented, but still not all EU countries, and a diversity of organizations.
Perfect, thank you. Good. 67 is quite impressive number, and really good. Probably it will grow in the coming months and years with SIFTA. Let's hope so, and let's hope also that this presentation will help to increase the applications to the code. Another question for Adele, and I think it's going to be very useful for all of these institutions that they are planning to apply to the code. Adele, could you please describe a bit the evaluation process? How much time is what is the effort from the provider that they need to put in this evaluation? Because sometimes maybe institutions, they think that it's only to apply, but I think there is kind of exchange with MFR.
Yeah.
Please. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. I think that's an important question that we don't mention enough, let's say, during these talks, because I think it's important also to understand what is the effort demanded by a microfinance institution to go through the code. So just to explain very briefly, so what will be the procedure? First, of course, there is a need to apply to the SIFTA program. That's very clear. So to be able to receive the evaluation free of charge. And this, I think Eduardo will give a bit more information towards the end of the session on how to apply for this program. Then once the application has been approved, we as the evaluators will come in. We'll have a very short kickoff meeting to understand a bit what's going on, when will be your availabilities. But the time, the effort really will be to about a month to a month and a half before the actual evaluation. You will be receiving an email with a few Excels and a few documents to prepare. These Excels and documents, it should take you about one full day of work. So of course, it's not one specific person that can do all of them. So it will have to be shared with different departments. It's general information which are asked about your portfolio, the quality of the portfolio, what are the different products that you offer, how many staff do you have, general information about the portfolio with the specific cutoff date. And then, of course, there's also a list of documents. This is what can take a bit of time for the institutions to prepare, because you will have to share with us all of your, the main procedures that you have in place, as well as the examples of loan contracts or of reports that you have to prepare on a daily basis or on a monthly basis. So that's the preparation phase, as we call it. It's called the desk analysis. Then we come on site to conduct interviews with various people in the organization. So the interviews usually take 3 to 3.54 days. On average, it's 3 days. It can happen that it's 3.5 days, but on average, it's 3 days. And in this case, we will interview from the board of directors to the loan officer. So there will be HR, marketing. We will have approximately 45 minutes to an hour interview with each key person. And then once the interviews are finished, we will be writing the report. Here you don't have any specific effort or any time to dedicate. If there is a document that was not sent to us, we might ask it over email. That's the only thing you might need to work on a bit. And then the draft report will be ready. You will be receiving the draft report usually 2 to 3 weeks after the evaluation, and you will have about a week to insert your comments. One small detail about this is that once the evaluation is finished, it doesn't mean that you receive that you are awarded with the code. You have to wait that your code evaluation is presented at the next steering group. And this is when you will be communicated, informed on if you are awarded with the code or not, directly by the European Commission. So just to have a clear idea of what's the procedure.
Perfect, thank you. We will also have a round of questions at the end if there is an additional question regarding the process. And now, Linus, I have a question for you, a bit provocative, and we are looking for your honest opinion. So basically, we were wondering if would it be better that the microfinance sector regulate themselves instead of having like this code of good conduct? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that financial services are quite complex one. And it's difficult to expect, when we talk especially about micro-lending for corporates. For corporate customers, they are not an expert in financial services, and we cannot probably expect that they will be. What they're experts in their area of activities. Either if it's a construction company, we expect that they will be good constructors. If they are a logistic company, we expect that they will be good in transporting goods from point A to B. So it's difficult to expect that they will be good in financial services and understanding it. However, despite that fact, it's very natural that customers are expecting that they will be treated in a fair way when they approach us. And the same is and that's why the standards exist, that either we come to financial institution, we expect a fair trade, either we go to restaurant, we expect both a tasty but also a healthy food, that it would be done in a proper way according to the standards of providing those services. Or we would buy buying a house, we would expect that it would be built, again, according to some standards. So from that, the same logic is here, that due to the fact that it's quite complex service, we expect that it will be provided according to some level, to the degree of quality, that it will be treated in a fair way, that customers would not be cheated on, and etc. And exactly, Code of Good Conduct is very much about that. It's bringing that standard, it's bringing that quality level, that it says to the customer, do not worry if you come to that lender. If he's working according to Code of Good Conduct, you will get a service which you expect to get. It would be done with this quality level which you expect. Yeah, that's very important, because we have qualities all over the market. I mentioned restaurants, construction, even e-trade, regarding buying and returning stuff, and etc. All those things, they have some certain level of quality which customer might expect, because he is actually a participant of civilized market. So the same is applicable to financial services too. So I think self-regulation would be quite complex one. It would be very long, and it would be having too high cost on the market, on the society. And we talk about quite sensitive businesses, about small businesses. So I very much think that code is in a way it's definitely needed here, even if players are not regulated by central banks. Nevertheless, we still expect that good level of quality of services, and that's what this code of good conduct is all about.
Thank you. It's really good to hear this from a practitioner. And now let's look a bit to the future. So my following question to Agnes is: what are the plans for the code by the European Commission? Do you plan to update the code? How do you see the future of the code?
Thanks. Well, I mentioned at the beginning already that the code is not a static instrument. We have updated it already because we want it to really reflect the realities on the market and to remain an instrument that is useful for the development of the sector. So I think we will never stop, looking into that and see whether there is any need to improve it or to update it. At the moment, we are looking in particular at two aspects of the code that we would like to reflect on how they could be further enhanced. So the first one is how can we make the code more inclusive? So I mentioned already, I mean, there is a variety of organizations that has the code, that have awarded the code, but at the same time, maybe we can reflect on how to make it more accessible also for smaller organizations or NGOs, no-profit ones, so to have access to it. So this is one aspect we are reflecting about. And the second aspect is about the geographical coverage. I mentioned it's very good, but could be even better. So we would like, for example, that the code covers all EU countries, and we would also like to have more organizations for certain countries that maybe for the moment are represented only with one, for example. So these are the two aspects we are looking at. I cannot say what the results will be of that because it's really a reflection. The point that for me is very important, this is also what I mentioned is at the beginning, is that all these reflections are always done together with the sector. So being it with the organizations, networks like the Microfinance Center, the European Microfinance Network, with the independent experts, with the code steering group, so with all the main stakeholders. So any reflection and any update, if there will be one that will be done, will be always done closely with together with the sector and all the key stakeholders. So this is the approach we took from the start when we created the code, and we will keep it in all the work we will do on the code in the future. But any feedback, that's why any feedback we can receive today or also, in the future bilaterally, we are very happy to receive it, and we are very open for any dialogue with the sector on the code and on its future. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, let's work together. I think we can bring the code to the next level and to increase the member states and everything. Thank you, Agnes. Now we are facing almost the 5 minutes just to finish the session. So I would like to make a quick question to Adele regarding the advice that she has for new applications that some institutions they plan to apply to the code. What should they plan? What they should work on?
Yeah. So I will go very fast. For me, for new institutions or even for institutions that have already gone through the code, there's three main advices that I would give. The first one is, if you have the capacity, is to go through first the institution assessment. The institution assessment is also an assessment offered under the SIFTA program, which will analyze the main gaps that you have in general, not just related to the code, but it will give you clear recommendations on how to improve. And these recommendations are in line with the code. So it will give you a better understanding of where you stand today and what to improve to be ready for the code. That's the first advice I will give, and that's the best one that I would see for an institution. The second advice would be that you take the self-assessment tool on the European Commission website, which gathers all of the different clauses of the code. You check all of them individually, and you see if you think that you are ready or compliant or not, or if you are not, then to improve yourself to be compliant with these clauses. And then finally, the final advice that I would give would be to formalize everything. So the code evaluation is mainly based on formalization. So it's very important that anything that you have implemented, if you, for instance, have a complaint procedure in place, a complaint mechanism in place, that's very good, but it needs to be formalized in some kind of procedure. The code is very much based on formalization. So risk management policy needs to be formalized, complaint policy, GDPR. So this is really something that institutions need to understand before they do the evaluation. But you will also receive a 2-3 days code training offered by Frankfurt School, and this can also help you, to better understand the code.
Perfect. Yes, indeed. SIFT is also counting with another service dedicated just to train the institution how to be prepared for the code. So in case of you are interested. Last question for Linus. So it was mentioned during the session in the beginning that banks, fully regulated banking financial institution, let's say, they need to just endorse the code. Would you recommend them to go for the full evaluation?
I would definitely encourage all lenders to really to try to work on this trustability issue in the market. And I think that code by itself very much might help here. Central banks, they regulate financial part of the business, capital adequacies and some very hardcore requirements which are kind of needed in the market. But code is about also some other aspects of operations, and I think that we need to increase customers' trust in the services. And another thing, so that's for the banks, because again, I think that there are issues still in the regulated sector too, like which is about the transparency and friendliness to customers. And I think that customers have sometimes fair complaints about the market. For example, look at your mortgage agreements. Most probably what you will see in your mortgage agreements when you will look at the definition, how banks are understanding a year and a month, you will see that they are calculating interest rate by assuming that it is 360 days per year, while at the same time calendar number of days per month. Now, what that means, I mean, it is not a bad thing. Bank might agree on the condition. It clearly kind of indicates that condition for all the customers. But now what that means for a real customer, it means that each year you're paying 1.5% more interest rate just due to that assumption, because we clearly know that it's 365 days per year, despite the fact that bank is assuming that it's 360. So basically, you are paying slightly more interest rate than otherwise you would do if the assumption would be that it's a calendar number of days per year, or that it is, or that it is 30 days in a month, but then 360 days in a year. So basically, there are those type of things about transparency, which are in, really kind of raising some kind of questions from the customers. Guys, how can we trust you? Because, it's a complex issue, financial services. But please be then transparent. You are expert in that area. I am, as a customer, will not be such an expert as you are. So how I can be sure that you are not using in your advantage this lack of knowledge in the financial services? And and I think that you mentioned it, Eduardo, just by finishing, you mentioned it, that it's nice to hear good things about code of good conduct from the practitioner. I will say it this way. Let's look at the analogy of restaurants. If you are a restaurant which is providing very good services, which are on the level of 1 Michelin or 2 Michelin stars, 3 Michelin stars. Now you ask that restaurant, is it good that there are Michelin stars existing? Each restaurant, owner would say, yeah, that's an excellent thing, because customers might know that I'm a good restaurant and they're coming to me because they are knowing it. I'm distinguished from all of the restaurants. So the same here works in this case. And just that non-bank institutions, which hopefully are participants of our meeting, should ask, okay, what type of services do you provide? If you are a good restaurant with 1, 2, 3 Michelin stars, then you would be happy to be certified and be able to show it for the market that, yes, I'm providing very good services, and that's external institutions who are validating me about that. So, it's very natural things which I'm saying. I think that our institution is providing those services, therefore I'm very much happy about the existence of code of good conduct. And I think it will enlarge, and it will be an important tool for, while partnering with the state also and with the market, delivering message in the market, this particular tool. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Linas. We are almost done. Okay. We should finish like at 11:40. I will take 2 minutes, extra minutes more. In my favor, I should say this is the first time I'm moderating a panel, so I'm not really used to the timing. There is a question for Adele regarding the documents that the institution they need to provide to MFR. In this case, they need to be translated to English, or they can be in local language.
So for the documents, no problem. They can be in local language. We will hire translation services, so that's perfectly fine. It's just that the best that we will ask is sometimes for you to send us the PDF version of the procedure, but also the Word version. Sometimes it's easier for us to translate if it's in Word. But that's it. You don't need to translate them. We will do that.
Perfect. Clear. Thank you. I think we covered a lot of things today of the code, and the information, it was, in my opinion, very clear. If there is additional question, or if you want to apply to the code, you are thinking about applying and you have questions, or you want to submit the application, I'm putting in the chat the email address where you should address your request. So sifta@eib.org. And normally I will reply you personally from that email address, and we will start the processes from there. Okay, I think it is done. There is a survey about the session that is going to be launched now, I think, by Pavel. Perfect. And of course, I thank you, all the speakers. Thank you, all the attendees. And I invite you to continue with the next session. Boost your capacity with SIFTA. Thank you. Thank you a lot.